Hello everybody. I've been out picking the beets and I'm now going to pickle them. So this movie is mostly about pickling beets. To finish it off, I've got a couple of small clips. One is a look at what's happening at the Mason Bee House this year. And the other one, of course, is another little look at the Banty mottled cochin and her little flock of Chanteclair chicks that are about 10 days old now, I guess. Anyway, hope you enjoy my pickled beets. Some of the beets are getting quite large, so I'm concerned that they're going to get woody. So I'm going to harvest them today, cook them, and pickle them. As you can see, there's fair variation in the sizes, and I'll give you a better look at them once I've got them all pulled out and cleaned up a little bit here. Well, not a huge harvest, but I'm very impressed. The best I've ever done growing beets, so I got to try to remember everything that I did this year, see if I can't repeat the same performance for next year. The larger beets will have to be either sliced into circles, rounds, whatever, or cut up into quarters to fit into the canning jars, but the smaller ones, the baby beets, I will just leave them whole. What follows now is the process that I go through anyway to pickle beets, a recipe that was passed down to me from my mother, and I'm sure came from my grandmother and probably great-grandmother originally. Very simple, but one of my favorite preserves. I just love pickled beets. And also those greens are still looking in great shape, and I love beet greens, so 2 or 3 meals of beet greens there to go along with the beets. Hopefully you can hear me above all the noise here, but to prepare them for cooking, all I do is rinse them off, get most of the dirt off of them. Don't cut the entire tap root, just cut a little bit off the end of it because you don't want these to bleed out all of their goodness into the water. And then I leave about 1 inch or so of the stems on the top of the beet, and I will divide these up into 2 saucepans when I'm cooking them, the larger ones and the smaller ones in 2 different pans, because the smaller ones will cook more quickly than the larger ones will, of course. Bring you back and show you what's happening in a minute. The beets with the leaves removed and all cleaned up. The smaller of the 2 saucepans has the larger beets in it. There are only a few fairly large ones, and the larger stock pot there has got the rest of them, medium sized and small ones. I'll let them come to a boil and then turn the heat down to a slow boil, a simmer, and just keep checking them with a knife until they're tender, and then we'll cool them off and peel them and get them in the jars here. Well, the beets have cooked until tender, and I have combined them all into one stock pot there now. Now I'm going to remove the stem ends and peel them, which is quite easy to do. The peelings just slip right off. At least I hope that's what's going to happen. Let's have a try here. Much to it. You can trim up the end where the stems were, and the root left on the root end. Before I put them in the jars, I'll cut them up further. Come back and show you these after I've finished cutting them up. There's my beet harvest, all cooked and peeled. I don't know, perhaps enough for 3 or 4 half-liter jars. We'll know shortly. Anyway, I'm going to now see if I can sterilize some jars and make up the pickle that they go in. Well, the pickle is 4 cups of vinegar, and I'm using apple cider vinegar. So my mother and grandmother would have used. We don't use the white vinegar for anything around here. To that you add 2 pounds of brown sugar, 2 sticks of cinnamon bark, 4 bay leaves, and 10 whole cloves. This could be put in a muslin bag, and that way it'd be easier to remove, but all these things are quite big and easily identifiable, so I don't bother. I can take them out later on when everything is done. You bring this to a boil, and then you reduce the boil and let it simmer and steep for about 20 minutes. Well, the instructions are to pack the beets in a hot, sterile jar, and that jar was washed and just came out of a 325-degree oven. It's been in there for a better part of an hour, so they're hot and sterilized. And then cover with the brine, the pickling mixture, and put them in a hot water canner for 30 minutes. Anyway, we'll see how we make out here. I'll come back when I'm ready to put them in the canner. Well, this is the part of the process that neither my mother or my grandmother would ever have bothered with. But all of the modern books on canning say to put them in a hot water bath for 30 minutes. This is very high acid content. It's almost pure vinegar, no water diluting it or anything. So I think once the jar is sealed on their own, they'd be fine. But nevertheless, I'm going to give them the half hour in a hot water bath. That's hot. Close to the fire, evidently. Okay. All down below the water. Once it returns to a boil, I'll time it for 30 minutes. Well, I had enough for 6 jars. I put 6 jars in the canner. One of the jars must have had a crack in it or something that I didn't notice. Anyway, first time I ever had that happen, it broke in the canner. The bottom, the side came out of it, so those beets are wasted. But I have 5 jars just out of the canner. They've spent 30 minutes in the boiling water bath. Now waiting for them to cool down and click when they seal. And after that comes the hard part. You have to wait 5 or 6 weeks before you open them up to see what they're like. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. What follows to close this video off is a look at the Mason bee house this summer, and another little visit with the bantam and her little brood of 5 Chanteclair chicks.
The last time I looked at the mason bee house here, I don't know, it must have been 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I couldn't see where anything was happening. Well, there's been lots of activity since then. If you can see the little bamboo tubes that have sort of a gray patch over the end of them, and I see 3, 5, I see at least 5 or 6 of them there. Those are the ones that the mason bee has been working in. They seal the end of their tube with clay, dirt that they make. That's where they get their name. They do mason work. Some of the other ones that are flying in and out there now don't look like mason bees to me, but there are solitary wasps that also use it. And last year I had leafcutter bees using it. I've just discovered today that work's being done, so I haven't been here long enough yet to see if any of them are leaf cutters. They come back with a slice out of a leaf that they've brought back to put in the back of their tube. Every time they lay some eggs, they give it some pollen and nectar or whatever to grow on. Once it hatches, then they cover that area over with another leaf cutting and keep doing that till they get to the end of the tube. But so far what I'm seeing are different kinds of wasp, I think. Yeah, that looks like a wasp to me. But anyway, the mason bee house is in use again this year.